Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Commitmas. Today, we are talking about how to configure Windows to use with Git and GitHub so you can participate in all of the Commitmas fun. I am your host and presenter tonight, Jonathan Frappier, and actually co-hosting with me is Angelo Luciani. How's it going, Angelo?
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for letting me participate. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for being along. A few quick show notes before I get started. We've got a Commitmas account on Twitter, along with our vBrownbag account, so you can either hit up those or use the hashtag Commitmas or hashtag vBrownbag. You can get all of our recorded episodes. I got Matt Brender's up last night introducing GitHub, bit.ly/commitmas2. Since this is our second year, you can see the list of recordings there on YouTube. And I messed up the PowerPoint. That shouldn't be 2 recorded episodes, but our GitHub repo is up. So if you want to take a look at all of the upcoming episodes, some of the challenges, the notes, if you want to fork that, if you know what that means yet, awesome. If you don't, no worries, because we're going to get into that as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to kill the music and let's get down to it. So I've got a Windows box here. It's a vanilla Windows 10 install. I actually downloaded the ISO today, so there's nothing special going on here. Straight out of being installed. And we're going to want to be in a command prompt the way I'm going to walk you through this, and I'm going to stick this in the taskbar actually. Yep, that works. Great. You're going to want to run this as administrator depending on what version of Windows you're in to make sure that we don't have any trouble getting all of the Git bits, and we're going to actually install Visual Studio Code as well. So there's a bunch of easy ways to do it. I like the easy way. So there's a package manager called Chocolatey for Windows. So if you're a Linux person watching and wondering how Windows people do Git, or if you're a Windows person wondering what yum or apt is or anything along those lines, Chocolatey is very similar. There's a bunch of packages that are built and published. So we can install Chocolatey. This command is actually right off of chocolatey.org. So if you go there, there's no, this isn't any sort of magic. This is just what they give you to install the system. So I'm going to kick that off. And that is going to go out and download all the bits it needs, do the installation so that we can do some magical things in a bit. You can see that's pretty quick. And now, if I want to install a package, normally if I wanted to install Git, I'd have to go find the latest package or whatever. I can just simply do choco install Git, and there's a ton of packages out there. There's browsers, there's text editors, there's a lot of different things. You sure you want to allow this? You could set the default to always run or use a -y. I always like the last opportunity to double check, especially if you notice, and I'm pointing to my screen, which none of you can see. After I type choco install Git, it goes out and looks for the package. If you guessed that a name, as I did earlier today with Visual Studio Code, this would be your last chance to kind of bail out of that install. So I don't set global config or global confirmation to just automatically install it. So we can kick that off. Depending on your package, how large it is, it's going to go out, it's going to download the bits, it'll run the installer. And like apt or yum, if there's any requirements for that application to run, we'll actually see this for Visual Studio Code in a minute. It will install those dependencies as well as part of the installation. So if there's some other bits you need, it's gonna know about those and grab them for you during the install. So this is really all it takes to install Git. It's very similar if you were using Linux. Tim Carr is going to show you how to do this on OS X tomorrow, but if you were using Linux, it'd be yum install Git. Pretty straightforward stuff. And this should finish up in just a minute. It looks like it hangs on Git for whatever reason. It's just doing some work in the background, but it actually goes by pretty quickly. And it's actually working. watch it not work tonight like it did last time I did one of these, and I was doing a app services demo and it failed until I stopped the recording and then happened to work as soon as it stopped. Boom, there we go, Git's installed. There's one more step we're going to have to do for Git. I'll show you that in a minute because I want to install Visual Studio Code. I've been looking for markdown editors since last Commitmas, really, and this is the best one that I found out there. So notice actually it asked me twice if I want to go. So this is where I was saying if there's any dependencies, this needs .NET 5.4.1. So it prompted to do that install because I didn't already have it installed. So it will take care of the dependencies for the apps if they're, or the packages if they're built very well. There's one more step we'll need to do for Git now that that is running. And that is, I'll show you first. There are a bunch, or actually now there's two applications that we need, three applications that we need that are in this bin folder. So we need to add this to our path in Windows. Could do it through the command line, but this way I think adding items to the updating the environment variables has been this way for pretty much ever. And that's done. And now we've got Visual Studio Code, a nice little basic code editor. We'll get into that in a little bit. Close the welcome screen here. And I will go ahead and I will add that Git bin in there. So right now, for example, if I typed sh, it's going to say that that's not a recognizable program because that wasn't in my environment variables. And if I go ahead and launch my command prompt again, it's now going to launch into a shell environment. Similar to Linux, it's going to have a lot of the similar Linux utilities. So for example, not ls, if you wanted to list out a directory, it's going to give you your SSH command. So if you wanted to SSH to a box from the command prompt, you could do so. We're going to generate a SSH key in just a minute from here, and we'll have all of our Git commands as well. So we can Git pull and Git push and Git commit, which Matt went over a little bit last night. And we're going to see some more of on Friday with Anthony. So what do I want to do next? We added our path. It bombed out of me out of SH for some reason. Try that again. All right. So we're back in here. There's a couple configurations that we want to add to Git, and we do that via git config. I don't know why I'm typing all that out. I got my cheat sheet over here. I could have just copied and pasted it. So we're going to want to add our username. So I set up a test user account just so that I could muck around. So git config -- global user.name and whatever your username that you've set up in GitHub is. We've got that all set. Set up our user email address, which I've got there. We'll generate a SSH key. So SSH keygen. It's going to ask where we want to save it. I take the defaults. If you've got a someplace you like to save those, that's swell. Provide a passphrase. And our key is added. So we can go in now to GitHub. Let's see if I can remember my my password. That's the problem with test accounts. Hey, look at that. So here's my account. Nothing in my profile right now. No followers. No. Got a test repo here. And if I click on settings here, I have the option to add my SSH key. So let's go back. Do it in code since we're in here. And I'll update that later. go open up the private key that or public key rather, that I just generated. I don't want to do the private key, that'd be bad. There's that SSH folder, the path that it created it in. Public key. Copy that. Click add SSH key, and I'll call this it's my Commitmas VM. I'm not sure what the best practice is necessarily around keys. Personally, what I like to do, and if you want to get mad at me for doing it this way, then please get mad at me and teach me another way. But I prefer to have keys per machine rather than one key that I kind of take everywhere with me. So if I'm setting up a new machine, I'm going to generate a new key, and if I need to kill that machine or that VM or it gets lost, I can just come in here and delete the key, and I don't have to go and update it on 20 other VMs. Maybe that's bad practice. It's the way I like to do it. So that's the way I do it. Once the key is in, you can test to make sure that you can connect via SSH. With this command, you can actually SSH to GitHub, but this will tell you if you're able to connect. So you'll want to accept their key and type in the passphrase that you set when you ran the SSH keygen. And if everything goes well, hi J Frappier, you've successfully authenticated. So we know our key is in our account and we are working properly. So for the most part, Git for Windows is set up, but I wanted to show you a couple more commands. Let's go take a look at, let's go look for the Commitmas repo. And here it is. So some other stuff that Matt got into last night, we're going to get to again. A lot of this is just practice and repetition, so I wanted to show it again. But this is the Commitmas repository that we've been using. So Commitmas 2 Month of Merriment. We've got our schedule in here, our GoToWebinar link. If you want to make a copy of this to see how things have been done, to see how all this formatting is done, maybe you're new to Markdown. I'm still learning Markdown. And learning new things all the time. But if you want to see how images are inserted or how we link to things within a document or to other external pages, you can go in here and look at that. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a fork of that repository. So if I do that, it's basically just going to make a copy for your own account. So you'll notice here I'm now looking, instead of Commitmas, 30 days of Commitmas, I'm looking at my J Frappier test account, 30 days of Commitmas. So now I could make changes to this, but without doing what's called a pull request, that's not going to show up in our Commitmas repository. Two ways to get this locally now. So right now it's on GitHub, right? I don't have anything. If I come back here, I actually want to be in my home directory, right? I don't have any 30 days of Commitmas folders in here. There's two ways I could do it. You can do HTTPS, or you could do SSH. Since we've set up SSH, you can, it'll ask you for the passphrase for the key that you added to your account, and it will pull and push using SSH. If you work in maybe a sort of strict environment where they don't allow SSH out, you might probably still be able to use HTTPS. And when you use HTTPS, it will ask you for your GitHub username and password each time you do some action. So I'm going to switch to SSH, and it gives you the link to copy. And we can hop back in here, and what we're going to want to do is a Git Clone. And then the URL it gives us, and it's going to, as you might expect by the word clone being in there, it's going to make a clone of that repository locally. So there I go. I've got 30 days of Commitmas now on my local machine. And I can come in here and open that up in Visual Studio Code. I could either open the entire folder, or I could open just an individual file. I'll open the folder so I can see everything that's going on. Wait for that to open. So here you can see this is everything that we have in GitHub. So if we take a look here, we've got a challenges folder, we've got our Octocat folder where we're hiding holiday Octocat, and our README file, and that's exactly what we have on GitHub, except this is now on my local machine. So I can work on this, make changes before I need to push it up. One of the cool things about Visual Studio Code on Windows, or actually, it's also for Linux and Mac. So if you just like the lightweight tool, you can use this on Mac or Linux as well. You can do the split view, which at first glance you're like, what the heck would I do that for? There's actually a preview mode. So as you're learning Markdown, if you wanted to change things, you can see live while you're typing. So if you want to make a change to the code and see what it's actually going to look like when you push it back up to GitHub, how it's going to be rendered, you can see that preview right in here as you're working on it, and pop that in and out as you need. So if I want to, and again, this is stuff Matt went over last night, so I'm just going to talk about it quickly here, but any changes I make here are just going to be on my local copy. They're not going to be even in my GitHub repo yet, so I'll just throw JF in there, and I will save it. There is some, for those of you that might be noticing things, like that little number popped up because I opened a Git repo. It knows that I've got a change in here now. Visual Studio Code did just come out of beta, and I've had some trouble with the Git integration, but maybe that was just me. Maybe that was me being at work behind a firewall. But either way, I would expect that to work if it doesn't already. Again, it was probably just me being at work, getting blocked by firewall. So I made that change, but it's not in GitHub yet, right? Because I just made it on my local machine. So I can do a git add. And you could do a dot, which would add any files that you've changed. I've just changed this particular one, but I'm not in that directory. That's better. So I go to be in the directory, obviously, to git add. And then I need to do what's called a commit to commit that change. And when I do a git commit, if it plays nicely, there we go, it's going to ask you for a commit message, and we've actually got an episode on how to properly write commit messages. Realistically, you could write anything you want in here. I could just write no, and that would take it. GitHub's not going to kick it back or anything like that. It's not going to give me any errors, but there's a way to write good messages so people understand what the commit's about. That might not even necessarily be a good message, but it'll work for tonight. This is VI, by the way, so I to start typing and then escape WQ to write and quit. And now I can push that change back into my repository. So those are kind of the short, simple steps to make an edit in Windows. It's actually the same commands in OS X or in Linux. If I switch back now, and I refresh my repo, you can see here that I've just, there's my commit message that I added in the Git client on my Windows machine, and I've got my change here. Again, this is in my local repo, right? So I'm in Frappier test 30 days of Commitmas. If I go back to the actual Commitmas repo, and I'm not going to submit a pull request for this, because I don't want it merged in, you'll see that that change is not in there yet. So we'll get into pull request later on in the series, but I wanted to show you some Git basics in Windows as part of the install. And that is what I've got tonight. Any questions out on Twitter? Looks quiet. That's good. And I don't see anything in here. So Angelo, any questions from you? Any comments?
Actually, I see a question from Anthony. The default editor for commit on Windows is VI, or did you change that?
I muted myself again. This is the third time I've at-willed myself. Git is the default, or VI is the default editor when you install Git. So literally this is a vanilla VM. What you saw me do tonight and what's in the challenge to README is we'll set all of that up exactly the same. You can change the defaults. Personally, I like VI, so I stick with it so that this way here, when I'm bouncing between Windows and Linux, I don't lose all of my, at least my basic VI skills.
And there's another question here, Jonathan. You can add, or maybe a comment. You can add -m and commit to git commit. Git commit -m.
-m. Yep. So you could. So the example I showed, if you didn't want to deal with VI or you didn't want to go into an editor, you could do a git commit -m and then type your message. So that same message that I typed in VI, you could type there. There seems to be some religion around whether or not to use -m. So we've actually got an episode on not using -m during Commitmas that we'll be doing. So if you're feel strongly one way or the other about using -m, please join that episode. Make it an interesting conversation. We'd love to hear, obviously, all sides and how people do it. But yeah, that is another option if you don't want to get dropped into VI because you can't remember the syntax to poke around. Basically, it's I for insert. That'll get you in. You can start typing, and then it's escape WQ. If you can remember those 4 keys, I, escape, WQ, 4, you're in pretty good shape with VI, in my opinion. That's what I do 90% of the time. When I was in VI a lot more, there's some ways to like search for stuff, and there's like slashes and dashes and whatnot, and I've forgotten all of that because I'm not using it right now.
Great. And there's a comment on Twitter from Brandon Wood regarding SSH keys on Windows. You may want to look at PuTTY agent to keep your keys loaded.
Cool. I will check that out. Yeah, I was trying to keep keep everything in the Git install, as it were, but the PuTTY agent might be another option. Brandon, I would absolutely love. It looks like you got a link there, but a blog post might be swell too, and we can link to it off the Commitmas repo, if you don't mind. Cool. It's 8:24.
Boy, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's 8:24. We've actually got 6 minutes until our regularly scheduled US vBrownbag. So with that, thank everyone for coming. Everyone that came out and watched, super pumped. Hope it was helpful to help you get set up. There are some basic directions in the Challenge 2 folder. So I'm going to upload this right away tonight, so it'll be available tomorrow. I didn't give the farm away with the directions. I kind of gave you high level, so you might have to do a little bit of Googling, but everything you need to get going should be in that Challenge 2 README file. Thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful Commitmas. We'll be back again tomorrow, day number 3, episode number 3 of Commitmas with Tim Carr, and he'll be showing you how to get your Mac set up. Thanks, everyone.